Well, good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started here. So first of all, welcome and thank you everybody for coming to the meeting today. We appreciate that. You're going to have a lot of good information that you'll take away from this today, so be prepared. Do we have any new members or any visitors with us today? I think I saw, yeah, Robin, you want to get up and introduce yourself and let us know where you're at?
I'm here. I'm Robin Ilanini, and I was a previous member. I think 2019 was the last time that I was part of NRAS. And then I took a little jaunt over to work for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And now I am back on the private side again. So I have signed my company up to be part of this group because I've really gotten a lot out of it over the years and enjoy the people I've met and great community.
Welcome. Thanks. Anybody else? Did I hear somebody over here? Oh. Oh, come on.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I work at Share House with Joey.
Welcome. Thank you.
I'm Bert Dahl with Dixon Insurance. Thank you.
Travis Thomas. I work with Western Products. Do accounts payable and fleet coordinator.
Okay, good. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Well, good. Yeah. Oh. See me now? All right. Uh-oh. I think I just deleted all my notes. There it is. All right. So our next event coming up is coming up pretty quick here, a golf outing. August 2nd, it's going to be 18 holes at Village Green. So if you haven't done so, please register for that. We need a head count for not only for the golf course, but for the meals and things like that as well. Anybody have any prizes they'd like to donate? That's welcomed as well. We'll be giving away some door prizes and other things like that. So Roger, anything to add to that or? Yeah. Team does? Yeah. All right. So down the road, we've got the conference coming up in November. It'll be November 30th. And just a reminder that this will be a one-day event. We're switching it up a little bit and we'll be taking place right here. So mark that down and watch for more information to come on that. So for upcoming topics, August, we're going to have the Wanzek Stretch and Flex presentation. September will be the North Dakota Safety Council Critical Issues Series, Industrial Hygiene. Speaker will be John Young. In October, Sanford will be here with what to do until an ambulance arrives. November, we'll cover worker fatigue. That'll be Crystal Nelson. So we've got some good topics coming up in the next few months, so please make plans to attend. Survey, we'll be sending out a survey like we have every other meeting. Please take the time to answer the survey questions and comment. You know, give us some ideas for some of the things that you want to see. This is your organization, so we want to make sure that we're bringing you the information and the content that you want to take away. So please let us know what you'd like to see and hear. If you want a response or have any suggestions, make sure and reach out to one of us board members. On the website, board members are all listed with their emails and phones, so you can reach out to us in a couple of different ways. So the email that we have for NRASP is nraspsafety.pros@gmail.com. So if you want to reach out directly by that, you can do that as well. So social media, check out our Facebook, LinkedIn, and our YouTube pages. Please follow, like it, share it. Let's get the word out. The videos have been very powerful for promoting the monthly meetings and other events that we have. So share that, get it out there so other people who may be interested in this organization but might not know about it, make sure they have an exposure to it as well. So, okay. Today we are recording the meeting. So the virtual meeting will be recorded and put up on our YouTube channel. So if you have anybody that wants to take in this content after the fact, you can log in and do that via YouTube. So with that, I'll turn it over to our speaker, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. So,
all right, welcome. Hello to everyone. My name is Ron Rosenthal. I'm with Border States Electric. I'll kind of get more into my background as we go. Everyone hear me all right? Yeah, okay. There we go. All right. So I was asked to kind of talk about and discuss the new Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's entry-level driver training, all the new rules that piled in on February 7th of this year. There we go. All right. Things I thought we'd like to talk about. I want to give you a little bit of background of Border States, how the rules apply to us and how we're implementing those new training rules. A little bit about my training background, then kind of set the stage. You know, what is the commercial vehicle definition? Talk about the difference between commercial vehicles and driver's license. A little bit about the intrastate versus interstate commerce. We'll dive into the driver training opportunity at hand. Kind of review the driver training or entry-level driver training before February 7th. And then after February 7th, talk about the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, implied CMV driver training for the rest of the commercial motor vehicles. Touch on some of the current litigation trends, and in those trends, talk about some of the vectors to trouble to avoid. So a little brief summary of Border States. We are about 2,600 employees. We're currently operating out out of 25 states. We run about 440 power units, 900 plus trailers, lots of truck mounted forklifts for just in place, just in time delivery service, payloaders. Currently, we have about 540 drivers in various classes of vehicles. We are running everything from pickups, which underneath the current commercial motor vehicle description, operating in many straight trucks. We are a primary flatbed distributor, lots of curtain sides, some box trucks. We also have specialized crane trucks. We'll deliver anything from AAA batteries to 110-foot utility poles. We do have a small fleet of what we would consider over-the-road trucks. We have some drivers that'll spend 1 to 4 nights on the road, mainly transferring our product around the country, some customer deliveries. For myself, I've been bouncing around in distribution for about 30 years. I've done everything from delivery driver to VP of ops, an owner operator for a while, and the fuel prices started to increase the first time. I quickly got out of that. I started personally training drivers in about 1999. I took 18 drivers from Class C to Class A myself. Quickly realized that I was not going to fill the company's driver shortage by myself and started partnering with schools. Use the CDL schools to build those core training skills, get them through their commercial driver's license, and then set them up with a driver mentor or myself to kind of polish their skills, build the customer service skills, and then the safe work methods at the same time. Trained some long combination vehicle drivers. You probably passed me on the freeways. You didn't wave. It's all right. I didn't recognize you either. Currently, I'm the fleet safety specialist at Border States. Really focused on the overall fleet compliance and operating risk reduction. I'm creating and providing a lot of driver training, the initial training, the onboarding, transitional, a lot of remedial opportunities, helping drivers succeed, and really auditing the DOT fleet compliance, identifying the gaps, implementing the improvements. Long way of saying staying off the DOT's radar. So the entry-level driver training for commercial drivers, it's really initial training for your commercial driver class A, your commercial class B, and your endorsements for passenger, school bus, hazardous materials. So let's first set the stage. So which rules apply to what class of vehicles? Let's define commercial vehicles, commercial driver's license, and then look at interstate versus intrastate. So a commercial motor vehicle, or CMV, the FMCSA says it's a vehicle used on a highway in intrastate commerce. For the main purposes of this discussion, I'll focus on intrastate commerce because I think that's where most people fall. The main definition, the vehicle has a total weight capacity of greater than 10,000 pounds, or as they say, 10,001 pounds or more. That includes any towed vehicle. That is the manufacturer's spec, not the weight of the vehicle or the weight of the cargo. So on that ID plate inside the driver's door, whatever that rating is, and then the ID plate on the frame of the trailer, whatever that is in combination. You got a pickup rated at 7,000 pounds, trailer rated at 4,000 pounds, you now have a commercial vehicle. Once you cross that main threshold, there's other thresholds for passengers and hazmat. Once you cross this main weight capacity threshold, you're subject to 49 CFR parts 390 through 396. Gets you into driver vehicle inspection, vehicle maintenance, medical qualification, driver qualification, hours of service, and the list goes on. The second definition that the FMCSA has for vehicles, weight definition, is for the commercial driver's license. The vehicle has a total capacity of greater than 26,000 pounds, or what they say is 26,001 or more. Then you're looking at a commercial driver's license to operate a commercial motor vehicle. Again, including capacity of any trailer. This is where a lot of drivers get in trouble. They'll take a large gooseneck trailer, hook it to their pickup truck. All of a sudden, they're a Class A driver. Run into it many times. The way I try to remember it is commercial driver's license is a commercial vehicle, motor vehicle, 26,000 pounds or greater combined. Class A is a trailer that has a capacity greater than 10,000 pounds. Class B, trailer less than 10,000 pounds. When you're under the 26,000 pound threshold combined, then your standard operator license, like your Class C here in Minnesota, North Dakota. Many different classes of standard operating around the country. All right. The other definition the FMCSA uses is intrastate versus interstate. It all boils down to it's more important of where the cargo is going than the vehicle route or the vehicle description. So the way they kind of boil it down, if your vehicle crosses state lines, or if your vehicle transports cargo or passengers that have or will cross state lines, you're an interstate carrier subject to compliance with the federal motor carrier safety regulations. So as Border States, we identify and label all of our vehicles, even our small transit vans. We're moving product all over the country. We're interstate commerce, so we play it safe and make sure everything's labeled, everything's following the regs. All right. Questions so far? Are you with me on all the vehicle descriptions? We set the stage. Some of you know this inside out, right? All right. Quick refresher on the ELDT training before February 7th. Entry-level driver training was defined then as less than 1 year of experience operating a CMV with a CDL and interstate commerce. And where the problem started, there really was no set CDL curriculum there were many of what people called CDL mills out there set to provide minimum training. I saw everything from places where you could get your CDL in 3 hours to 30 hours. Basically, the students obtained their commercial learner's permit. You know, went down to the DMV, got the book, studied, got your permit. You got hands-on training by a school or by a company to pass the 75-point vehicle inspection. They trained you to back straight up and to back 90 degrees into a dock. They did public road training to pass the CDL test. I saw a school that's purely used the same course that the state examiners did, and they went around and around and around until the driver did it perfectly. So, the employer verifies the CDL and completes the road test. Then, as part of the driver qualification files, they also added in these 4 training requirements: the hours of service, the driver wellness, the whistleblower protection, and the coercion of drivers. When those were complete, all you had to do was generate a certificate of completion. You didn't have to keep data on the actual training. And if they passed or anything, all you need is the completion certificate of completion. And you added that to the driver qualification file. Hopefully all your commercial motor vehicle operators have a driver qualification file. Alana in her Time article makes an interesting observation. Kind of thought this was neat. Aspiring barbers have to spend 1,000 hours or more in training before they get a license. But to drive a 40,000-pound truck, there's no time requirements, no proof of ability to navigate through mountain, snow, or rain. Just a medical exam, a multiple choice written exam, and a brief driving test. That led to horrific things like this. We all heard about the April 25th crash, Interstate 70 near Lakewood. When a semi-trailer truck brakes malfunction, causing the truck to crash into 12 cars and 3 other semi-trailers, resulting in multiple fires, explosions, killing 4 people. During the trial, there was a lot of emphasis that the driver was not properly trained during the trial. The company worked for, Castellano Trucking, had a higher than average rate of vehicle issues. They had a lot of brake citations. The driver, as you know, received a 110-year sentence originally for those fatalities. Since been commuted to 10 years by the governor of Colorado. Still, something tragedy that didn't have to happen. There's a video of the driver cruising right by the runaway ramps. He was never trained on a brake fade, never trained on the runaway ramps. Thank you. Nice segue. Castellano Trucker was dissolved months later after the fatal crash. However, Newsweek had an interesting report that Volt Trucking LLC was registered as a business 1 day after the fatal crash by the same owner. So business over for Company A, move everything to Company B. All your marketing, all your branding, right down the drain. Did not find anything to see what kind of fines they faced. But, all right, questions on the old training? All right, so February 7th of this year, FMCSA establishes a federal standard for mandatory training of entry-level drivers. It establishes the minimum requirements entry-level driver training providers must meet, and then establish the need for the training provider registry. As Bailey Wood states, fleets should benefit from the higher standard because the main FMCSA goals here were to standardize the training across the nation, lower fatalities, and eliminate the CDL mills, which we just talked about. All right, just a refresher. So who's considered entry-level? Anyone obtaining their Class A or Class B for the first time, or anyone upgrading to a Class B, anyone updating from a Class B to a Class A, anyone obtaining the endorsements of school bus, passenger, or hazardous material. I've seen that most states are pretty lenient on this regulation, especially coming into it. If you could pass the written exam before February 7th, you were grandfathered in. They're also grandfathering people in that have less than 1 year of revocation. So if you can't hold your CDL for some reason, they'll give you about a year before they'll force you back through this training again. So the FMCSA sets out really two kind of components to this training. You've got the theory instruction and then the behind the wheel instruction. First time endorsements, you know, the passenger school bus, hazard material are only theory instruction. A lot of this theory instruction can now be done online. Some will have, of course, classrooms. Then you have the behind the wheel instruction. You have a range and a roadway. All the curriculum so the training provider must follow the curriculum that meets the applicable standard. It's in appendices A through F of part 380. So there's an appendix for each class, your A, your B, your endorsements, your long combination vehicle training. There's still no set time requirements, but you must pass all the written tests with an 80% average. You don't have to pass each course with 80%, you have to have a curriculum average of 80%. And then of course you have to pass the state road test. So I took the Appendix A, the more upgraded version, kind of walk through that, see what they're looking at. On the theory side, you're looking at basic operation, your theory of your pre-trip, post-trip. You're looking at your safe operating procedures, your theory of your distracted driving, your speed and space management, your night operations. A little more advanced theory, your hazard perception, your skid control and recovery, your railroad crossings. They're requiring some vehicle system and reporting malfunctions. I never found this in any of the early trade schools. No one was teaching this type of thing for identification and reporting of malfunctions, roadside inspections, what to do, how to respond to a violation, and then vehicle maintenance, what's required. So you get into the non-driving activities, and you'll notice those original 4 training lessons really didn't get removed. They just got moved to a different section. So we see that the hours of service, the fatigue and wellness, that whistleblower, and prohibiting coercion is back just in a different spot. Once you get done with the theory, there's really no order that the school has to train these in. You can take this training in any order. It's just all got to be complete before your certification's complete. But most would move on next on to the range. This is your hands-on vehicle inspection, your pre-trip, your en-route, your post-trip, really your DVIR completion. Again, here's where they do the straight line, the alley dock. They do have some more difficult maneuvers here. The parallel parking blind side and parallel parking sight side is a pretty advanced maneuver with a 53-foot trailer if you don't plan on removing street signs or street lights. Once you're done on the range and completed that portion, most will take you out on the public roadways. We know the drills. It's turns, entering and exiting, merging, which is always a challenge, no matter which vehicle. Behind the wheel, here's the practical speed and space management, safe driver behaviors, railroad operation, railroad crossings. Many different approaches to the training. One approach is you can buy the curriculum, the online courses. You can have your driver certified through like J.J. Keller. They'll do the whole package for you. Their estimate with a student to instruction ratio of 4:1, they estimate about 200 hours to complete the course. So we went from a max of 30 to 200 in their version. Another driving school we work with is Sage Trucking out of Montana. They have a more tiered approach. So they say for the beginner and you got no experience, they offer 102 hours of online learning, 48 hours of driver instruction, probably about 5 weeks to complete. It's going to be in a group or class setting. They go on to, if you've got a little bit of experience, they'll cut down on some of the driving hours, probably about 4 weeks to complete. You have another tier where it's more your Class B to Class A group. They're saying about 80 hours, cutting it down to 50 hours of online learning. If you're Class B already, you should know some of these things. Still about 32 hours of driving and about 4 to 5 weeks to complete. Their version of the Class B, about 28 hours, 12 hours online, 16 hours of driving, so a lot less time. Still talking three weeks to complete. Another approach is more the one-on-one approach. Our friends at M-State, they're looking at about 30 hours online, about 20 hours, one-on-one drive time to complete. So about 50 hours to complete this minimum. So you can see there is a great increase in the time and the training now in the regs. Other things, they ask that they utilize a facility that complies with all federal, state, and local statutes and regulations. So no more empty trailers in an empty lot with tables and chairs. Or I've seen tractor trailers that have 4 swivel seats that double as a classroom. Not allowed anymore. So if you're not doing the online version, you have to have a classroom that meets all the regs. You guys know the drill: egress, fire protection, on and on. You must use training vehicles, must be in the group and type that the driver trainee intend to operate for the CDL skills test. I saw a lot of schools out there that utilize the smallest possible straight truck and the smallest possible fifth wheel trailer to meet the Class A regs. Drivers would pass their test with that small vehicle, and they were now certified to operate a 75-foot, 80,000-pound truck. Ran into a lot of those when I was recruiting and hiring. Not good. You must use instructors that meet the criteria set forth. So they have to have the CDL and endorsements to operate the training vehicle. They have to have at least 2 years of driving experience or training experience, not both. They meet all the applicable state qualifications. So if you're going to offer this to the public, you may need to be state certified. Interesting subpart is they prohibited from training for 2 years if the CDL has been canceled, suspended, or revoked for any of the disqualifying offenses in 383.51. When you look at that, it starts off with an employer knows or reasonably should know that a driver is disqualified. It must not allow the disqualified driver to operate a CMV. It kind of ends with major and serious offenses require driver disqualification, even if the CDL holder is driving a non-CMV. We all know the major offenses: 1 year disqualification, driving under the influence, refusing a test, leaving the scene, committing a felony, driving without a license. It's the serious offenses that require a little more thought. Serious offenses require a minimum disqualification of 60 days. Speeding excessively, 15 miles an hour over, driving recklessly, improper erratic lane changes, following the vehicle ahead too closely. If you've got a dash cam system, what are you doing with it? It's one of the things we've been working on. Driving a CMV without a license, violating state texting and handheld cell phone use while driving. I find drivers struggle with this one a lot. Drivers are very quick to sign your cell phone policy, but they don't generally understand it. They don't understand that the FMCSA says no reaching, no holding, no dialing, no texting, no reading, even if you're stopped in traffic or sitting at a traffic control device. We'll get into more into cell phone policies later. For the theory side, your instructors have the same requirements, but there's also a caveat on there: or previously met the requirements. So if you have an instructor that can't hold a CDL anymore, other than for reasons in 383.51, that person can train the theory side. You're gonna offer this to the public, and in some states, you may be required to be licensed, certified, and registered to provide the training in accordance with the laws of any of the state where the training is conducted. State testing agencies are required to report non-compliance with the entry-level driver training or minimum state requirements. Some states have minimums for how many hours you have to be behind the wheel. If you're not meeting that, if they have to report it to the FMCSA, you'll probably hear about it. If you're operating a training facility, you must allow FMCSA and its authorized representatives to audit and investigate the training to ensure that the trainer meets the criteria set forth. They can remove you from the training provider registry. There's an appeals process. New, I haven't seen how that works yet. All right. To get set up, you must electronically transmit an entry-level driver training provider registration form through the TPR website, which attests that your training provider meets the section to obtain a unique TPR number for each training location. One company training in 7 different states, you got 7 submissions for each, one for each site to get that TPR number. They also created a website, contains the official list of entries registered on the FMCSA for training. They all self-certify that they meet the requirements for being an entry-level driver provider until the audit comes. Then the auditors may remove some of them. Also houses or retains a record of which drivers have successfully completed the entry-level driver training for the state licensed agencies to access. If you're a training provider, you must use written assessments to determine driver trainees' proficiency in the knowledge, objectives, and the theory portion of each unit. Again, the student must achieve a minimum test score of 80% for the total curriculum. The training instructors must also evaluate and document a driver trainee's proficiency in the behind-the-wheel skills. They're also going to have to record the hours, as we'll show a little bit later here. And then as a training provider, you must upload by the midnight of the 2nd business day after the driver trainee completes the training, to electronically transmit the training certification information through the TPR website. So you got basically 2 business days to get that information in. That information being the driver's name, license. What's interesting is here's the total number of clock hours the driver trainee spent to complete the behind the wheel training. Again, some states will have a minimum, most states don't. So an entry-level driver must have a certification of completion on the National Provider Registry before they be allowed to complete the skills test or issued a license endorsement. So I've had drivers try to set up their skills test before they had that certification, and they were denied. Then they found out what schooling and cost they had in front of them. All right, to remain a trainer, you got to meet the requirements, obviously. Biannually update each location. So if you have 7 locations, you're updating 7 locations. If you're offering it to the public, or in some states, you're going to have license registrations and certifications you may have. You have to continuously allow the auditors to investigate your training, ensure all your required documentation is available, and within 48 hours, just like any other DOT audit or FMCSA audit. All right. Questions on the new training from the new training provider? Everybody following me? Go ahead. Some are, but most are going through a third party right now. There are a lot, yes. So, yes. Sure. The question was, well, the original question was, are there companies doing their own provider and setting themselves up as a national trainer? Yes, I've seen some companies on there that are creating their own schools. Predominantly though, then Mike asked you how many, is there a lot of training providers? And yes, as I've been doing more searches on the site, there are a lot of training providers on the site now. I just did one in Jacksonville, Arkansas. Figured I was gonna get maybe one or two. There was 10 to 12. So, great. Other questions? All right. So that's kind of the quick summary of the new entry-level driver training for the CDL drivers. So what does that imply then for the non-CDL commercial motor vehicle drivers? When section 390 says every driver and employee shall be instructed regarding and complying with all applicable regulations. It's really asking, can you verify the driver understands the regulations that apply to them? Part 391, general qualifications. This can, by reason of experience, training, or both, safely operate the type of commercial motor vehicle they will operate, and it has successfully completed a driver's road test. What training and what documentation do you have that states that you've observed or this driver can safely operate the vehicle? An interesting twist to the road test. So in the road test for a CDL driver, there's the opportunity to waive the road test, although nobody recommends that. There's no real option to waive a road test for a non-CDL CMV driver. Somehow that person has to demonstrate to you that they can safely operate that vehicle. And then there's the cargo securement, part 393. Each commercial motor vehicle must be loaded, equipped, and the cargo secured to prevent the cargo from leaking, spilling, blowing, or falling from the motor vehicle. As Chuck noted, we should have timed this with the North Dakota DOT seminar. It would have been a nice segue right in between the two. .393 also says cargo must be contained, mobilized, secured. It really comes down to, is the driver familiar with the North American cargo securement standard? Can he apply it to the load? Did somebody train him? Did somebody observe him? Is it documented? When you put all of that together, the training for the non-CDL commercial motor vehicles really is saying, can you confirm through the road test and or documented training that this driver can, one, identify and apply the regulations to their vehicle operating class? Is this driver subject to hours of service or are they exempt? Two, properly inspect the vehicle for safety-related defects. Air brakes is very popular now in that 10 to 26,000 class vehicle. Very few drivers receive any training on air brakes, on how they operate, how to inspect them, or how to report defects. Make things confusing, most states on a normal operator's license consider air brakes as a restriction, not an endorsement. So if you do not have the restriction on your normal driver's license, you can operate air brakes, just to make it clear as mud. Three, safely operate the vehicle. What documentation do you have that this person can safely operate that vehicle? If they show up in a Toyota Corolla, can they truly operate your Ford F-450? And then safely load and secure the cargo. I know our drivers call our loads super Tetris, trying to put things together on a flatbed and keep them there. Things like pallets of water on a flatbed don't ride well, but we do it and they're good at it. But how do you train them to do that? What documentation do you have that they're successful at it? Questions so far on the implied training and what that may mean to your drivers? All right, awesome. So let me talk a little bit how border states are training plans. So we have our initial training. We're teaching our drivers about the regulations, what applies to them. We're also teaching them to be a safe driver. We've got several different defensive driving plans we're using. One that we like the most, that we're National Safety Council fans. We've got vehicle system and identification and inspection training. We do initial training, online training. We have 2 individuals that are roaming the country doing hands-on training and inspection audits. Make sure the drivers understand it and can apply it. If they're doing it, what does the vehicle look like when they're done with it? Cargo securement and vehicle weights training. Do, it's the standard online securement training when they start. Then the vehicle weight training. We find that a lot of drivers do not understand axle weights or bridge laws. They get themselves in trouble. Hazardous materials training, if the driver's hauling any hazardous material, they have to know how to document it, how to deal with it and spill it. Challenging driving conditions. Run into a lot of drivers that move and do not know how to deal with snowstorms, sandstorms, or mountains. I've dealt with drivers in mountains. We've all had those scary stories. We operate with the Lytix drive cam system. If you have a video dash cam system, are you training your drivers on what it's looking for and then how to meet or exceed those expectations? Yes. The question was, are the Border States cameras inward, outward, or both facing? The answer is Border States cameras are both. We utilize the newest system. The front camera will store 100 hours of operating time. The rear camera will only send 20-second clips. So the driver has to trigger an event before that clip is sent. And then you'll see the face, the cell phone, the pizza on the steering wheel. No, none, no. We do not. We are trying to do that for our pole trucks because with a 50-foot tail swing, stop signs are our mortal enemy. So we're trying to get that implemented right now, but have not got that far yet. So, yeah, great questions. And the question was, do we have rear-facing cameras? The other thing, Border States is a scorecarding company. We use a driver score on their performance to identify which driver needs our help in training. We offer training to that drivers on what that score is, how it's accumulated, how to avoid it, and then what training is available to help them succeed. Distracted driving policy, like I said, drivers are great at reading the policy, signing it, and moving on. But our policy says no communication. We have an extra training there that says don't touch it, period. The drug and alcohol testing required. We also use the Centric system for electronic logging and vehicle inspection training. And we offer training on how to use that app, how to report those defects. In that inspection app, you have to have 3 signatures. A driver that found the defect, supervisor or mechanic that signed off to said it's fixed, and then the driver's signature again on the review. We make sure, helping the driver to verify that all 3 are there before he uses that vehicle again in operation. And we also offer driver, supervisor, or mentor training. As I mentioned, we set our new drivers up with mentors or supervisors to help them become polished, help them with the customer service side and the cargo loading. But we find there's now many supervisors out there, people that want to jump into supervision with DOT experience. So we're trying to offer courses to help set them up to communicate with the driver effectively and then help that driver succeed. In our stages, we move on to the transitional. We looked at opening a school ourselves. Again, we're in 25 states. It's a little difficult. So we're partnering with the National Registered Schools for their CDL training. And then we set them up with a driver, mentor, or supervisor for 4 to 8 weeks. We know that once you get through the school, you can keep the truck moving, but there should be some polish. There should be some customer skills. And again, our loading and work methods. We're also using the same initial training for our non-commercial CDL or non-CDL commercial vehicles. The FMCSA told you what their minimum standard of training was. It's basically the same training, sometimes just different component size on the trucks. Running them through those same scenarios of the ELDT training, so they have that. We also have ongoing training. So we talked about all these drivers running through these CDL mills. We're out there with parts and pieces of the ELDT training in a monthly refresher for all of our drivers so that the people that ran through these CDL mills now get a chance to refresh and pick up these skills. Then there's the remedial and the corrective. As I mentioned, we're National Safety Council fans. We use a lot of the professional truck driver training, which is really the what and how. We use the attitudinal dynamics of driving training, which is why people drive the way they do. Distracted driving, it tells you the dangers, handheld or hands-free of driving and talking. And then we use, we've got 3 others. So we got 5 certified trainers for these courses, and then we got 3 certified trainers that do ride-alongs. So I mentioned the scorecards. If we see a driver that's struggling and gaining high scores, we'll hook them up with a certified driver training. We find that some drivers are not real great at taking the video course knowledge and applying it to real life situations. Find out if we put a certified driver in the jump seat and he says, here's the situation, apply the training here, works real well. All right, why train? Why do all of this? How many here have heard about the reptile theory? 1, 2. All right, let me introduce you to these guys. So the Reptile Theory is published in 2009, currently sold on Amazon for $1,195 per paperback copy. It's a bargain price. Last year it was $1,600 a copy. Sometimes you can buy a used copy for $895. It's a plaintiff's guidebook on how to successfully attack transportation companies for massive settlements and serious injury or fatality vehicle collisions. The Reptile Theory is based on the human need for survival and self-preservation. The Reptile Theory book shows a plaintiff what metrics to look for and how to obtain the big data that most transportation companies overlook. What the Reptile Theory calls vectors. These vectors can expose systemic faults within the company's safety operating procedures or practices. Once discovered, the plaintiff will use a systemic failure to convince the jury that the survival and self-preservation of the public is at risk, and they must respond, fight or flight, with a resounding message to defendants in the form of huge punitive damage settlements. I was just just on another conference where the average jury award now for a serious injury or fatality truck collision is $25 million. That's the average. Florida just had a $1 billion award case. Tractor trailer driver on a cell phone rear-ended and killed a high school person. The jury awarded that remaining family, it was about $100 million, and the pain and suffering was $900 million in punitive damages. Clearly meant to wipe that company out. So once the systemic failure and the need for survival have been established, the facts of the current accident become irrelevant. Humans' primal need for survival will overpower their want for logical justice every time. Defendants who prepare their defense based solely on the facts of the accident are resoundingly defeated by the plaintiff's reptile theory attack. In recent cases, the litigation attorneys are attacking key areas in fatality or serious injury collisions, regardless of who was originally at a fault, to prove that the company was negligent. In talking to a trial lawyer, his theory now is sue first. Even if it was your fault, sue first. They're looking for discrepancies in the driver onboarding file. Was this driver qualified to be hired? Discrepancies in the driver qualification file. Is this driver even qualified to drive? Then they're asking, do you have a systematic vehicle maintenance and repair program? Are you following it? Vehicle maintenance is now the #1 and growing roadside violation. Is the driver subject to hours of service? Is the driver in compliance with the hours of service? Lots of neat stories with our Centrix provider on how drivers find new ways to get around the ELD systems. Then was the driver adequately trained on the vehicle they are operating and the cargo they are moving? Is the training and a road test documentation available? And one recent lawsuit that I read, specifically going after this driver was not adequately trained. So in these vectors to trouble, can the litigators prove, negligence entrustment? You gave a driver a dangerous weapon and you did not train him well to use it. Or negligent supervision. You did not monitor this driver. You don't have some kind of a scorecarding system to watch the motor vehicle record, the CSA scores, if you got dash cam, his performance. And then negligent retention, the one I hear all the time. Somebody's got to make that delivery to the customer. We'll deal with it after he gets back. Might be a little too late. Another interesting development was a recent Supreme Court action. Plaintiff claimed a broker negligently hired a carrier that was involved in a personal injury accident. Broker argued that it must rely on the FMCSA certifications, unsatisfactory, satisfactory, or conditional, or it would face various state negligence standards. The Supreme Court left the final decision stand. The broker was negligent. They determined and basically said the FMCSA regulations are the minimum standard. You have an obligation to review your carrier's scores, use carriers with above average scores, and if you're the carrier with above average scores, it's time to improve. And as I believe, most improvements start with training. Questions you may have? Helpful information? Yes. Some do. Some get, gets old after a while, but most do. They enjoy the attention. The question was, do most drivers enjoy a car full of kids asking for the air horn? Other great questions. Yes. Yes, we need drivers. Everybody's suffering from the driver shortage. Great question. The question is where the autonomous vehicle comes into play. That's still getting battled through the courts. You had the whole the Google mess where with the fatality. They're still battling that through to figure out who was responsible for what. Where I live, I see a lot of the autonomous trucks. They still have drivers. The driver's not holding the steering wheel, but they're working on it. I don't know where it's all going to land. I really like the concept of the freight trains where you have one driver in front and then 3 to 5 vehicles behind you that are all driverless. That has a lot of merit. But great questions. What other questions? All right. With that, I'll give it back to Chuck. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. If you think of any questions after the fact, you have your contact information. Okay, yeah, you can, if a question comes up after the fact, reach out to one of us board members or, and we'll get the question to them and get the answer back to you. So, all right. Once again, watch for the survey. Please give us some information on that. Let us know. Yeah, question. If you are looking for that, just indicate it on the survey, and then we'll make sure to get those issued. Yeah, so if you need CEUs for this, indicate that on your survey, and we'll make sure and get that credit to you. So with that, enjoy the rest of the afternoon, and thank you for coming. Have a great day.